Hello and welcome to the Blitz, the NFL Defense Analysis Podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. We're talking about some top options for your cash games, GPPs for Week 14, and it's crazy that it's already Week 14. We're getting close here to the end, and fortunately, NFL one of the few, at least for the first weekend of playoffs, so there's still some viable playoff action, unlike baseball and some other places. But either way, not getting too far ahead of ourselves. One thing that's a big thing this week, obviously, Seattle Seahawks defense. One, at the beginning of the season looked awful. Then looked kind of average for a little while. Then last week just looked phenomenal. Granted, it was the Vikings, who aren't a very good defense anyway, but Seahawks still have plenty of playmakers. And DraftKings seems to not be believing in them here as they face the Ravens. And it's been for the last couple weeks since Joe Flacco went down. You target the Ravens with an opposing defense. And even the Browns a couple weeks ago, yes, they gave up a lot of points, but a couple of those special teams defense and a decent fantasy output. So now you put a much more talented defense than that one and the Dolphins that they faced last week. And you face them at $3,500 on DraftKings against Matt Schaub and company. And you just don't envision a scenario where the Ravens score a lot of points against any defense, especially this one.
Yeah, I mean, at any price, the Seahawks sort of ranked as an elite defense for me. But when I hopped on DraftKings and saw they were just $3,500, not only did they become an elite defense selection for this article for me, but I mean, you might as well autofill cash game rosters with the Seattle Seahawks to 35. You're not saving a lot to move down to the other top deep options this week. And Schaub, it's remarkable. His pick six tendencies are just something out of this world. If it were good luck, I would say he should buy a scratch-off ticket. I'm not really sure what he should do with his bad luck, but it's remarkable what he's pulling off. He threw a pick six against the Browns. He threw a pick six again last week against the Dolphins. I mean, it's like clockwork, and those are two bad defenses. I mean, and they couldn't score points. They scored 33 combined points in the last two games offensively. They had two return touchdowns against the Browns plus PAT, so they had 13 points from special teams basically in that contest, but 33 combined points against two defenses that rank in the bottom 10 in points allowed per game. The Browns are actually seeding the second most points per game to opponents, and the Ravens couldn't muster anything. Good luck against a top defense like the Seattle Seahawks, who not only don't allow a lot of points, but they get after the quarterback. They don't allow a lot of yards per play. I mean, this is like a perfect matchup. And at 35, they're an easy pick on DraftKings. And even at 53, they're still a really strong play on FanDuel, though you do have some strong alternatives there at least.
Yeah, and you got to figure on the Matt Schaub thing. An average fringe NFL player, you got to have something that people remember you by. Unfortunately for him, it's a pick six, but you know, at least people remember him. Long down the road, once all these bad quarterbacks are gone, people are gonna say, "Remember that guy who used to throw pick sixes every week? Yeah, I remember him." At least we'll still be thinking about him in 20 years.
That's true.
Yeah, you got to have something. Next up, Green Bay Packers against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys obviously. We don't need to go down the whole road. They're missing all of their players that matter. Des Bryant can't do anything without a competent quarterback either. So it's a bad team that could hardly move the ball against a Redskins defense last week. That's not a very good defense. And Packers, still a good defense in this matchup especially, coming off of what feels like a loss against the Lions. They played like a team that lost. They got the win, but they're still in kind of a win-now mode. And all of a sudden, an NFC that, I mean, you got the Cardinals up there at the top, but pretty much outside of that, I mean, that number 2 seed and first-round bye is kind of just anyone's for the taking, and now's Green Bay's time to kind of assert themselves against bad teams like the Cowboys and move into that number 2 spot and kind of take their stranglehold there. So I'm a believer in the Packers in this game especially.
Yeah, and who'd think that an Aaron Rodgers-led Packers team would largely be carried by their defense at this point? Rodgers not having a banner season by his standards, and a lot of that can be thrown at the feet of the receivers who you could throw the football at their hands and they're not going to reel it in, but that's a different point. The Packers defense has been good this year. The Castles look terrible. Can't move the football. After getting off to a good start once leaned on heavily, Darren McFadden's really cooled off, so the running game isn't really producing much. They had a touchdown gifted to them in the Monday Night Football contest when Deshaun Jackson did what Deshaun Jackson does. Made a bad decision, ran backwards, fumbled the football near the goal line. They actually basically gave Darren McFadden that touchdown to save some clock for themselves. I mean, otherwise, the Cowboys looked dreadful. They were goals last night. So this isn't an offense that scares you at all. The Packers can get after the quarterback. They're 7.5-point favorites, and they're at home, so those are huge factors working in their favor. They get up big. They're going to be in a good position to pin their ears back and get after Matt Castle, and I expect that to be the case this week. At DraftKings, $3,200 salary puts them in play as a GPP swerve off of the Seahawks for me. And at 48 on FanDuel, they are a cash game or GPP play because there is a bit of a gap in price between them and the Seahawks there. So definitely really like them a lot this week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. And then staying in that same division, the NFC North, a team who started off looking like arguably the worst team in the NFL. Lots of personnel changes, especially among the coaches. All of them except Jim Caldwell, it seems like. But either way, the Lions play much, much better football. We're in a great spot to beat the Packers last week until the Hail Mary right in Golden Tate's face, which I thought was pretty perfect. But either way, Lions defense actually playing well over the past few weeks. Finally, now facing a Rams offense that, I mean, it's hard to say they're not the worst offense in all of football. They've got one legitimate playmaker in Todd Gurley, who, I mean, everyone's been loading up the box, and we know this. It's been weeks and weeks of this now. You're going to stop Todd Gurley. He's going to be stopped. So why even bother? Good luck throwing the ball down the field. Really, their only consistent option in their offense is the trick plays they run with Tavon Austin to get him into space, and that's about it. I mean, this is just a god-awful offense.
Yeah, and I mean, really, since Blaine Gabbert took over the 49ers, and I didn't be saying that, the 49ers have surpassed the Rams in terms of offensive output. I mean, the Rams are just a lost offense. They cannot pass the ball for anything. And as you noted, with Todd Gurley, really their only reliable weapon, teams are loading up the box and taking him away. They're averaging a paltry 15.8 points per game. And you want to talk about a bad matchup for Todd Gurley and the Rams, an offense that's completely reliant on running the football. The Lions are a bad defense to catch right now. Over their last 4 games, they're allowing just 58.5 yards rushing per game. They've really tightened up the run defense. Held the Packers in check, which isn't really necessarily super noteworthy since Eddie Lacy's been holding Eddie Lacy in check all year. But I mean, they've looked great since their bye week. They're stopping the run. They're not allowing a lot of points. Even in that game against the Packers, they allowed just over 300 yards from scrimmage. So, I mean, the defense is playing at a really high level. And even though the offense isn't really giving them big leads to work with, I see that they're a 1-point underdog on the road. I think that the Lions win this one going away, and I think that the defense gets after whoever is quarterbacking the Rams this week, and I certainly think that they take away Todd Gurley. So this is a nice unit that has floor and a high ceiling, I think, this week. And at $2,700, I offer you a nice savings from the Seahawks and any other defense you're considering. And on FanDuel, 47 is a fair price, even though maybe if they feel a little bit overpriced because as a team they're not winning a lot of football games. The defense has been really good. Yeah,
absolutely. That's it's a team that's finally moving in the right direction. So definitely a team to keep on your radar defensively, especially. Chicago Bears next up, facing a Redskins team that couldn't seem to get anything going last night. It's Tuesday morning now, as you may have assumed, but against the Cowboys, who are an average defense at best. Now we've got the Bears facing off against Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins obviously on the road. Kirk Cousins, when you do play him, you play him at home, and when he goes on the road, you pick on him, and that's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Cousins is averaging fewer than 6 yards per pass attempt this year. He has 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, so he's thrown more picks than touchdown passes on the road, and he has just a 69.8 quarterback rating on the road. This is a quarterback-driven league. When your quarterback can't even crack 70 with his quarterback rating, he's not doing a competent job back there. And even against an average to below average, there's no average about it, but a below-average Bears defense, they've got enough defensive players to make plays. They're not so bad that they can't keep a Redskins offense in check that struggled at home, as you noted, against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, and they've just been a train wreck on the road all season. I mean, they're averaging 17.2 points per game on the road, which is just dreadful. If you're not scoring 20 points in today's high-octane NFL, you're not doing a good enough job on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good spot for the Bears, who were, I mean, another team was actually playing a lot better recently. The Broncos against the Raiders next up. Broncos, Bengals, Patriots, obviously all battling for those top two spots. Broncos kind of have the edge up on the Patriots right now. They need to just take care of their business because right now the tiebreakers are on head-to-head games and on conference record, and Bengals and Broncos have the slight advantage there as far as conference record. So Broncos want to go ahead and lock that up. Obviously, Bengals Broncos play in a couple weeks, but you got to continue to win the games, especially in your conference. This is a very winnable game. They're 7.5-point favorites. The Broncos need to come out and win this game convincingly, and the way they've been doing it with defense and with a smart offensive attack.
Yeah, and Brock Osweiler doing just enough on offense to keep his defense from being. They've run the football well with him under center. I think that they continue to play that ball control offense, run the clock, manage the game, take care of the football. And taking care of the football has been a problem for the Raiders this year. They rank tied for 10th with in most turnovers with 20 so far this year, so they are prone to giving the ball away. Derek Carr has made some big adjustments this year and looks much better in year 2 than in year 1. I'd imagine part of that's the fact that he actually has NFL caliber receivers to throw to, and they're keeping him upright. But he is facing an elite defense that's really the best in the league at stopping the pass. They have great cornerbacks. They rank among the league. They lead the league in sacks. Are doing a great job of suppressing points, 4.5, and they rank well in turnovers forced with 23. So across the board, the Broncos are doing everything to score fantasy points. And as big favorites at home, you got to like that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a great spot for them. Coming up next, Carolina Panthers, another one of those elite defensive units. Coming off a game where they didn't play particularly well, so this could keep their ownership a little bit lower than it normally would have been. And if we tell you 6-7 weeks ago, undefeated Panthers at the time, still undefeated now, facing off against a Falcons team that was rolling on offense, defense playing well enough to help them win games. But this is all of a sudden an offense that looks terrible, a defense that looks average, and they're kind of doing the whole they are who we thought they were thing with the Atlanta Falcons here, where they weren't that great. They just won a couple easy games early, and I mean they look like an awful team now, and Carolina could certainly pick on the awful inconsistencies of Matt Ryan this week.
Yeah, Panthers are the hosts for the Falcons. Makers love them as a 7.5-point favorite. And as you noted, the fact that they gave up a lot of points could suppress their ownership this week. But, take their bad showing with a grain of salt. As everybody knows at this point, I think, and that's been the case for the last 5 years or so. The guy is just considerably better at home than on the road. The Saints put up a lot of points on the Panthers this past week, and definitely a much better draw against the Falcons. You got Josh Norman to keep Julio Jones in check. The run defense might have problems with Devontae Freeman, but I still like the Panthers quite a bit this week. I mean, the Falcons, if they can't get out of their own way, they haven't scored more than 20 points in their last 6 games. That game was a 21-point output, so we're not talking about a explosive offensive showing in that one good showing in their last 6. Just not a good offense right now. And Panthers, another one that scores fantasy points across the board by suppressing scoring, just allowing just 20.3 points per game, forcing turnovers. Nobody forces more than they do with 29 on the year, and they get after the quarterback with 35 sacks. So they basically do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, another battle of the AFC West. Chiefs and the Chargers. Chiefs big-time favorites here, 10-point favorite. And, first couple weeks of the season, you see this game, and there's no way in hell you'd see a 10-point spread. I mean, Chargers weren't playing great football, but the Chiefs were down there with the Lions among like a laughingstock of the NFL. All of a sudden, they're one of the hottest teams on the planet. Chargers battling for that number 1 spot. in the draft next year, coming off just another terrible offensive performance against a good defense. And this is a Chiefs defense that always had talent. They just weren't playing well at the beginning of the season. And I'll tell you what, I would not want my team to be facing the Chiefs right now. And if my team was the Chargers, I'd be even more worried.
Yeah, I mean, good news for Chargers fans is this should help their cause for landing that top pick. I mean, the Chiefs are the biggest favorites of the week. They're at home where they always play well. I mean, they played well at Arrowhead since the beginning of time, it seems like. And this is a Chiefs team that just waxed the Chargers a few weeks ago by a margin of 33-3. So they've already trounced them once, and that was in San Diego. This time they get them at Arrowhead. Since going on this ridiculous win streak, I mean, they went from winning their first game to losing 5 to winning 6 in a row. They're on fire in the 6-game winning streak. They forced 17 turnovers. That's nearly 3 turnovers a game during their streak. They're allowing just 13.5 points per game during that stretch. I mean, they're just on fire. They can sack the quarterback, ranking within the top 10 in the league in that category. There isn't anything this defense isn't doing. And they followed a disappointing showing against the Bills in Week 12 with just a great showing last week against the Raiders. And I'd expect more great things from this Kansas City defense against a very one-dimensional Chargers offense that lost Stevie Johnson during that game. Not sure what his health is for this coming weekend. But, I mean, this is an offense that was already bereft of weapons, and now they could be out another receiver. So good luck to them against the Chiefs. They're going to need a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, they got a patchwork offensive line, like you said, no weapons. I mean, there's nothing good going on for the Chargers right now. So all they're doing is sitting here hoping they can get themselves, I don't know, 3 or 4 offensive linemen with their top picks. Maybe get themselves I don't know. I mean, already drafted Melvin Gordon. That experiment's not working out well. So this is a rebuild type of team right now. So it's an unfortunate situation for them, but we don't feel bad for them when we're targeting other defenses. We just play the Chiefs and then worry about the Chargers' feelings later. Next up, the New York Jets against the Titans, and this is a team that's battling with the Chiefs in the playoff race right there for the 5-6 seed in the AFC. Facing off against Marcus Mariota and company, and another one of those situations where we see last week Mariota and the Titans put up a ton of points on the Jags. Obviously, the Jags, not a good defense. Jets, the opposite of that. So recency bias, once again, should keep the Jets' ownership down. And this is still a good Jets defense. It's not an elite unit, but they do have a few elite players. I mean, they got a very good pass or a very good run defense. And, I mean, you kind of know with this Titans offense, they've been inconsistent. I don't want to say it's completely one-dimensional because even their passing attack's not great, but you contain Marcus Mariota and you see what else happens because, I mean, that's going to be your recipe for trying to beat the Titans.
Yeah, and I'm not super crazy about the Jets this weekend, but they get a rookie quarterback coming to them to play in New York, or technically New Jersey in this case, but that's a whole different point. But, I mean, Todd Bowles, he was hired not because he's a great offensive mind, but he was a great defensive coordinator with the Arizona Cardinals last year, and he's carried over his defensive mindset to the Jets, and the Jets have done a good job of forcing turnovers. They don't allow a ton of points per game. They make teams march the football down the field slowly at just 5.1 yards per clip, so they're not allowing a lot of big plays. And they've gotten after the quarterback a little bit. 28 sacks is certainly a solid mark, but they're 7.5-point favorites, and that's a big number for. I mean, there are half dozen teams that are 7+ point favorites this week, but I mean, the odds makers are telling you what you need to know there. The Titans don't have a running back that's going to be able to really run the ball against that Jets front. The Jets are going to keep that running game in check. You do worry about Mariota's legs maybe posing some problems, but he's a rookie quarterback. He's on the road. He's expected to have to play catch-up. And unlike last week when he got to face a soft defense of the Jaguars, not going to be a soft defense this week from the Jets, especially if they get Darrelle Revis back, which another week out last week, you got to figure further removed from that concussion, probably more likely to play this week. And if that's the case, now that they have a true game-changing wide receiver to take out of it, but Revis will take someone out of this game and make things a lot tougher for them. And the other thing that I didn't note in the write-ups for the article, but is worth noting, is that they've been very good at defending the tight end this year. And Delaney Walker, obviously a key piece in that passing game, really has been the only consistent weapon for Marcus Mariota. If they can continue to take the tight end away like they have all year, that's really going to make life difficult for him.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, he's pretty much the most integral part of that passing attack. So slow him down, slow down that offense, and obviously big game for the Jets as they're making their playoff push there. So that'll wrap things up for us here for the defense analysis. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.